Welcome to our evening meditation, a few days before the start of the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity, which I think starts on Wednesday. And this year is being led by churches of Minneapolis, where, of course, George Floyd was murdered, and exploring how the work of Christian unity can contribute to the promotion of justice across all levels of society. And despite the heightened awareness brought about by the death of George Floyd, there's still, I think we can all attest to an ongoing resistance to dialogue about issues of power and privilege, exclusion and alienation, and a real challenge for Christians to bring to this dialogue a vision of reconciliation grounded in mercy and faithfulness, justice and peace. And I think yesterday, Sunday, had certainly in some churches a designation of Justice Sunday. So with that as the background, we bring ourselves to this time, this place, this space, adjusting our posture, adjusting our position, feeling comfortable but feeling alert, feeling connected, with our feet on the floor, with our bottoms on our chair or our sofa, resting our hands gently on our lap, in our lap or on our thighs, and either closing our eyes or lowering the gaze or looking at the image on the screen. And we bring, as always, our attention first to our breath. Noticing that we are breathing. Conscious of the time it takes for the breath to enter through the nose. And conscious of it leaving through the mouth. Conscious of the physical movement of the body as we breathe in, especially the rising of the belly on the in-breath, and gently falling on the out-breath. Sensing a rhythm there. I often bring to mind an image of the seashore, the waves coming up the beach on the in-breath, and the sound of the shingle running down the beach on the out-breath. And paying attention to different parts of the body that we take for granted so often. We don't need to touch, but simply bring our attention to the top of the head, almost imagining a body scan, focusing on successive areas, successive parts, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, Maybe let a little smile come to your lips, your neck, and the shoulders, if they're tense. As you move down each part, just as you pass it, allow it to relax. Upper arms, lower arms, wrist and hands. Torso, stomach, moving behind, thinking of your back, and just imagine each vertebrae, the spine that does so much work holding us up every day, the waist, strong muscles in the thighs, the knees and the knee joints, shins, ankles, letting each one relax in turn, the feet and the toes. And just a sense of gratitude to this body having carried us these years. So some thoughts around the idea of justice, which we touched on in October last year with One World Week. And just to reiterate, to demonstrate how embedded that idea of justice is in the Hebrew scriptures. The two words, and this is getting a bit scholastic, which are sometimes translated as justice. One, tsedeq, which really means righteousness or fairness, treating people equally. And then there's mishpat, which is better translated as judgement, that which is needed when things go out of balance, out of equilibrium. So the first chapter of Isaiah chapter 1 verse 17, learn to do right, seek justice, and there the Hebrew is mishpat. Defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. Psalm 99, likewise, the king is mighty, he loves justice, mishpat. You have established equity. In Jacob you have done what is just, mishpat, and right, tsedeq. Now at the time of Isaiah, and for much of ancient Israel, of course, formal religion was thriving. But even then, wealth was seen as a blessing from God and poverty as some sort of punishment. Seeking justice, judgment when needed, and doing good wasn't on the agenda of the priests or the ruling authorities. So the seeking after justice has been a very ancient requirement and necessity. And yet sometimes with our modern religion, we've been led away from this, thinking of faith as personal salvation, and that political engagement is a distraction from personal responsibility or obscuring eternal questions. But such an idea of faith contradicts the Bible it claims to obey. Because all are made in the image of God, not just individually, but corporately. All of humanity represents the image of the Creator. So to deny that image in any one person is surely to reject God's presence in the whole of humanity. I've got a couple of poems to share tonight. The first one by W.H. Auden, written in 1939, Refugee Blues. Written in 1939 about a Jewish family who've escaped to America and the less than warm welcome they received there. This isn't the whole poem, but say this city has 10 million souls. Some are living in mansions, some are living in holes. Yet there's no place for us, my dear, yet there's no place for us. Once we had a country and we thought it fair. Look in the atlas and you'll find it there. We cannot go there now, my dear, we cannot go there now. The consul banged the table and said, if you've got no passport, you're officially dead. But we are still alive, my dear, but we are still alive. Came to a public meeting. The speaker got up and said, if we let them in, they will steal our daily bread. He was talking of you and me, my dear. He was talking of you and me. Dreamed I saw a building with 1,000 floors, 1,000 windows and 1,000 doors. Not one of them was ours, my dear. Not one of them was ours. Stood on a great plain in the falling snow, 10,000 soldiers marched to and fro, looking for you and me, my dear, looking for you and me. That was written in 1939. And some things don't really change. So as we come back to our breath, our calming breath, we might think of others in that category of the Jewish family. Refugee, asylum seeker, migrant, some more welcome than others. But God knows their human names, because they are your kin, stamped with your image, divinely human. So maybe we, as we bring our attention back to our breath, perhaps carrying some of the thoughts of injustice that we might be aware of, situations that we read of in the news, or perhaps a time when we felt an injustice. I wonder if into that space that we might think of as a lament, lamenting these situations, a protest so deep that it must become a prayer, for only God can provide needed hope that justice will prevail. Salt of the Sound, whose music I often play, said in a recent post, social justice, and in particular the exploitation of human life, is something that has been stirring in our hearts recently. We've been shocked to learn that human trafficking is not just an issue somewhere else. It's happening in 2020 in the UK, the US, here in Hong Kong, where they're based, and worldwide. So we want to shine a small light on this subject and encourage you to ask questions about what may be happening where you live too, and how you can help. Jesus prays that we will be completely one, praying for an authentic and selfless unity. He also, in response to the question, "Who is my neighbour?" sets out starkly how national barriers and boundaries are to be transcended. And perhaps we can bring to this situation, if nothing else, we can bring breathing in the love of God, breathing out anything that, breathing out the anger, breathing in the idea of justice, breathing out the fear, the pride, the selfishness that leads to injustice. A couple of stories before we move to our longer silence. I have friends in the Caribbean community in Preston whose parents were of the Windrush generation, and I know that older members can still recall being made rather unwelcome in churches across the town in the 1960s. But one of the descendants 10 years ago began the first Windrush festival, music and culture and even a cricket match, which attracts people of all races and backgrounds, really transcending that divide. How do we recognize and celebrate these differences, I wonder? What can we do to identify or make provision for celebrating difference in our area, in our community? As well as coming up to the week of prayer for Christian unity, we're also, I think, in the season of Epiphany. And so another poem to take us into our silence, written by Malcolm Guite a few years ago at this time. Again, echoing Auden's poem, this one is Refugee. We think of him as safe beneath the steeple, or cosy in a crib beside the font. But he is with 1 million displaced people on the long road of weariness and want. For even as we sing our final carol, his family is up and on that road, fleeing the wrath of someone else's quarrel, glancing behind and shouldering their load. Whilst Herod rages still from his dark tower, Christ clings to Mary, fingers tightly curled. The lambs are slaughtered by the men of power, and death squads spread their curse across the world. But every Herod dies and comes alone to stand before the Lamb upon the throne. So we move to our longer period of silence. Perhaps holding a candle in our mind's eye, a candle of hope, a candle bringing light to places of injustice. We'll bring back to our breathing, breathing in that which nurtures, that which restores, and breathing out into situations we might be aware of. Or just use your breath to bring calm and peace. So we come out of our time of silence. The music of salt of the sound. Bringing yourself back to this place. Taking a deep breath and another. Gently stretching, wiggling toes, fingers, and gently opening your eyes. And a closing thought, words from a hymn to be used as prayer. Show me how to stand for justice, how to work for what is right, how to challenge false assumptions, how to walk within the light. May I learn to share more freely in a world so full of greed, showing your immense compassion by the life I choose to lead. Amen.